A large crowd with us this morning. We're not always so favored with so many people in the morning. So we'll start the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
So there are meeting documents available today down next to Commissioner Heiberger, if anyone needs anyone. And this is our opportunity to silence our cell phones. It's always a good reminder for me. So we'd appreciate if you would take a moment to do that. And Craig Dewey's here today if anyone needs a listening device. So that will take us into routine business. I'd consider a motion to approve the agenda.
Motion to approve agenda.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is item 2. Consider a motion to approve the meeting minutes from January 7th.
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is bills to be paid in the amount of $3,703,307.22.
The bills.
Second.
Lots of excitement about paying the bills. Motion and a second. Any comments? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. There's a number of reports there I'd recommend for people's review. We've got the Minnehaha County Monthly Construction Project Update, the Sheriff's Report for December 2019, the Coroner's Report for 2019, and the EMS Summary. Takes us to item 5, Personnel Actions. I'd consider a motion to approve routine personnel actions.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Next item is an item for a special personnel action to authorize a new administrative clerk in Human Services. Carrie Deaver.
Good morning, Carrie Deaver from Human Resources. What you have in front of you this morning is a request for a new administrative clerk position in Human Services. Excuse me. The position is being requested due to growth with entry and scanning for the Board of Mental Illness database. There's been a dramatic increase over the past several years. The one thing I'd like you to note about this request, that while it is a request for a full new position, 40% of the funding is currently available in a part-time budget. So if you authorize this position, it's Carrie's intent to eliminate the part-time work instead to help fund the position. Carrie's here if you have any questions for her, but that is the request this morning.
Any comments or questions?
Madam Chair, I've reviewed this. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is an abatements, and there are none. Item 7 is a notice and request to authorize the auditor to publish notice of hearing on February 4th, 2020 to consider a 2019-2020 annual retail on-off sale malt beverage license. Olivia.
Thank you. A Homestead Brew has submitted a retail on-off sale malt beverage and South Dakota Farm wine license application, and they do want the 2019-2020 year. I clarified with that with them since it's coming up towards its end, and we're just hoping to schedule their public hearing for February 4th.
Motion to approve the publication of notice.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Takes us to planning and zoning notices. There are none. Petition for compromise of lien. There are none. So that takes us to public comment. We always have a lot of folks here today. I will be taking public comment on the refugee resettlement issue, which I'm guessing a lot of you are here for. But if there's somebody here that would like to speak about anything else, this is your opportunity to come forward. All right, seeing nobody rushing the podium, we will move on to regular business. So that takes us to item 10, which is a request to authorize the chair to sign a letter of consent for initial refugee resettlement in Minnehaha County per Executive Order 13888. Betty Oldenkamp and Rebecca, I'm going to let you guys come forward. And I don't actually see, oh, there you are. I was like, I lost you in the crowd, so.
Good morning, members of the commission and all of you in attendance today. We have made the official request to you as the County Commission for Minnehaha County to provide consent to continue initial refugee resettlement within the county. And we provided a briefing at your last meeting. We know there are several other folks here that are interested in sharing comments, so we will just make ourselves available to respond to any questions you may have at the close of your comment period.
Okay, thank you. So I will be taking public comment now. I'm wondering if you guys would do me a favor. If you would, I'm just going to have folks raise your hand. If you're here to speak on this issue, would you go ahead and just raise your hand so I have an idea of how many people are here to speak? Okay, so if you're here to speak in favor of this issue, can you raise your hand? Okay, and if you're here to speak against this issue? All right, okay, that gives me an idea. So what I'd like to do here today is I'm going to start with the folks that are proponents or in favor of this issue. I'm going to let you have 3 minutes each, but I would ask that you not repeat yourselves. And so, I would like to say personally, I have received, and I think all the commissioners, we've received a lot of comments, a lot of emails, and a lot of folks talking to us. We've tried to keep all the things that we've received in writing available in the public record. And I personally apologize that I got behind and I haven't even responded to the folks that, because it was a little bit overwhelming, honestly. But that doesn't mean that we don't truly appreciate everyone taking the time to let their opinions be known on this issue. We recognize that this is an issue that has varying opinions and has been divisive in other communities. I would really request that your comments today be respectful of other viewpoints, and honestly, I'm going to pretty much demand that. So to the extent I feel like you are crossed the line and you're not being respectful, I'm going to ask you to sit down. I think that one of the great things about living here in Sioux Falls, living in South Dakota, and particularly Minnehaha County, is the fact that we can disagree in a really respectful manner, and that's what I would expect this morning. So we didn't have a sign up. What we're going to do is if you'll just come forward and identify yourself and just let us know if you live in Minnehaha County or not. And then if you would you can queue up, you can stand in a line, or you can just take turns. Let one person speak, and the next person get up. I'm fine with that. I just want to make sure that that we do it in a somewhat orderly fashion. So I'll start with the proponents, the folks that are in favor of this request to authorize the resettlement of additional refugees. If somebody wants to take the lead, you can go ahead and stand up. Thank you.
Good morning, Chairwoman Bender, Commissioners. My name is Tunisia Aslam, the Executive Director for South Dakota Voices for Justice. We in the community here in South Dakota fight for our immigrant and refugee and Muslim communities. And we do that by bringing impacted people, so immigrants and refugees, in this case refugees, to share their stories and be their own voice. In doing this work since 2017 in all corners of South Dakota, I will mirror what you said, Chairwoman, that our communities are welcoming, and overall, our communities across the state understand the value that diversity inclusion has, not only for our economy, but also culturally enriches our communities. So today, I would ask if we could have the refugees that are here, there's 3 of them here today, to speak next. Thank you for taking this process on, which has been kind of forced into your laps through this executive order, and I am really hopeful that our communities across the state will be inclusive and unified in welcoming refugees. Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair Bender, distinguished commissioners, my name is Cham Fong. I live a block away on Main Avenue in Minnehaha County, and I help run a studio also on Main Avenue, and I'm honored to be able to talk to all walks of life on a daily basis. I have a podcast where I've talked to a DJ from the East Side with immigrant parents who's now on a European tour. I've been able to talk to Miss South Dakota about her upbringings in a small town. And I've even had the privilege to talk to our mayor just very recently. I feel really honored to be able to speak here, because I come from a country where this isn't even possible. I have three brothers. Two of them are engineers. They do things way above what I'm capable of even understanding. They help this country run. They develop GPS systems, and they design agricultural tools used around the world. For me, though, I just talk. I have a podcast. So, like I said, this is a huge honor, and I love this country. I've grown here my whole life. I've grown up here my whole life. I've been in Minnehaha County. I grew up right next to the penitentiary. This is home for me. I love this place. I think of my summers at Terrace Park. I think of riding go-karts at Thunder Road. There's nothing more home to me than Sioux Falls and Minnehaha County. But none of this would be possible if Lutheran Social Services didn't help relocate us here in '92. And ever since then, it's been wonderful. And this is a dream come true for me, to be able to engage and participate in my community. And I really feel honored, because as a refugee, I'm blessed, I guess, to be able to do this, because most refugees I know right now are working labor jobs, and they wouldn't be able to get out of their daily duties to do this. So I'm asking that you commissioners vote yes to continue to allow refugee resettlement, because thanks to these guys at Lutheran Social Services, I've been able to achieve the American dream, and I hope that I can do that for the next generation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm a little bit taller than Sam, so I'll raise the microphone. Good morning, Chair Bender and distinguished commissioners. My name is Suleiman Dibby. I'm 24 years old. I am a first-generation college graduate from Augustana University, 2017. I'm the president of Our Growth Project and co-founder. We are a fiscally sponsored nonprofit here in Sioux Falls, backed by the Sioux Falls Arts Council here in Minnehaha County. What we focus on is providing a safe haven and a resource and platform for the underprivileged and underserved youth here in Sioux Falls, where they can practice their art and be part of a community. We focus on education, art, and entertainment. We've been in operation for the past 3 years in partnership with first the bakery and now Augustana University. We do it once a month, and through the culmination of our efforts in the community and the resources we provide and the events we've been able to put together, this past October in 2019, we were recognized by the city and Mayor Paul Tenhaken, and October 21st is now Our Growth Project Day due to what we do in the city. My refugee story: I am a native of the Gambia. My family came here in 1998 when I was 3 years old. I'm the youngest of 12, so as you imagine, there was a lot of fighting in the house. I'm a Muslim and the son of a teacher of 20 years and an illiterate mother. She paid my whole college, so shout out to moms. Like Sam said, due to Lutheran Social Services and them being able to resettle us here, they introduced us to great people within the community, mainly the refugee community, introduced us to families whom we are still great and close friends with today. People, I guess, tend to overlook and sometimes forget how giving and generous and together the refugee community is. For example, myself, I lost my brother at 6 years old, and the first people who embraced my family, the first people who came financial assistance to pay for the funeral, the first people who consoled us were the refugee community, and they let us know that we were part of something bigger. And I believe I say all that to say this, without the opportunity from LSS, without meeting these great people within the Sioux Falls community and refugee community, and the opportunities provided to myself and my family, I wouldn't be able to be up here. I wouldn't be able to graduate from college. I'd be back home doing who knows what. Sioux Falls is my home. It's all I know. September of 2019 was our 21st year here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, and I haven't lived anywhere ever since. So this is all I know. I grew up here. I went to school here. I know a lot of people within the community, and I love my city. And I ask all of you to please vote yes in the consenting to refugee resettlement here in the Sioux Falls community, and I thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
I'll put it back down. Chair Bender and distinguished county commissioners, my name is Julian Abubakr, a student at Augustana University and a proud resident in the Minnehaha County. When I was 9 years old, living in war-torn Soleimani, Iraq, I woke up to the sound of my mother packing my favorite stuffed animal into a bag. The next day, we found ourselves in Turkey, begging at the doorsteps of the United Nations, hoping to find a new place to call home. In the 4 years we resided in Turkey, we faced homelessness, discrimination, and prejudice. My father was denied a job, my mother was ill and pregnant, and some days we did not have food to eat. I didn't understand why people treated us in this way until one day I came home with bruises, and my mother explained to me why the children at school were mean to me. She said, "Ema Kurdin Gulakam," which translates to, "We are Kurds, my flower." The Kurdish people are a stateless nation divided over regions in Turkey, Iraq, and Iran, and Syria, one of the biggest nations without a place or a land to call home. In 2012, after years of waiting in Turkey, the United States was the first country to approve our resettlement. I still have a diary entry from when I was 13 years old reading, "I can't believe I'm going to America. It is like a dream." Upon arrival, the community of Sioux Falls welcomed my family and I with open arms, giving a place we can call home. The culture, language, and customs were overwhelming at first, but the love and support of the community was exceptional to our transition and integration process. Over the course of my life, I have been part of several communities that have been temporary homes to me as a refugee. But I have never known any other place besides Sioux Falls, South Dakota, where I have felt a sense of belonging, a sense of support, and a sense of unity. When I received my citizenship in 2015, I knew that after years of displacement, poverty, and persecution, I was finally lucky enough to call the Sioux Falls community a family. Unlike many other children around the world, I've had the privilege to get an education. As a government and international affairs major, I want to give back to this country by eventually working for the U.S. and utilize my language skills to better serve both the American people and my newfound home. I am constantly inspired by refugee friends and community members who contribute to our community through new businesses, activism, hard work, education, and colorful cultural festivities, making our community already great and on a path for growth. I am here today to request that you vote yes to consenting to refugee resettlement and remind the Sioux Falls community about the values, generosity, and kindness of all South Dakotans. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to everybody. Mr. Chair Bender and the distinguished commissioner, my name is Pastor Samuel Gator. Originally I'm from Liberia, West Africa, and I came to Sioux Falls since May 29, 2007. I came here as a result of the civil war in my country. And Sioux Falls, South Dakota, that is my first city. And South Dakota is my first state to be in. I'm very grateful to the mighty God for a lot of kind people, good people in this community. Even since I've been here, I feel at home because there are a lot of great people here. We receive their support. And this hour, I just want to encourage every one of you, the commissioner, the elders of the community, to vote yes for refugee coming to South Dakota. Even though by us coming here, we were a lot of refugees on the camp. But we thank God for the opportunity that He has given to us to come to this part of the world to receive you people as our brethren and sisters. So I just want to encourage you to say yes to the Liberian community, even all immigrants that will be coming to South Dakota. So please see us the same way Christ Jesus see every one of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair, Commissioners. My name is John Cunningham, and I reside in Sioux Falls. I'm here more to think about the organization of the thoughts that you're going to be presented with. I think they're all going to fall into three groups. The first group will be moral, ethical, religious reasons why you ought to support this. I think you will hear a lot of those arguments, and also the economic reasons. I assume that the Chamber of Commerce and others who want this resolution because of the economic necessity for it. And the third group will be those who are opposed to it because they fear that these people like the ones you just heard from, are evil people and are a danger to our county. And I think those are the three things. In 3 minutes, I can only speak to one of them. So I'd like to speak a little bit to the first one, the ethical, moral, religious argument. The Christians, and I'll focus on Christians because you're all Christians, would likely argue that if Jesus were on the dais, he would be leading the fight to support this. He said that I was a stranger and you welcomed me. What you do for the least of my people, you do for me. And he would, to be consistent with his principles, his values, he would be fighting for this. But and that's the religious argument. That my Muslim friends and Jewish friends would argue that we don't have a lock on those values. Those are universal values that Muslims and Jews endorse also. But the counter-argument, the problem is that there is a strong counter-argument. The First Amendment. The opponents have the First Amendment to point out that that provides for separation of church and state, and they're entitled to separate. That you're entitled to separate your religious, ethical, personal views from your political actions. And they can go to church on Sunday morning and ask God to be with them all the time, and then on Tuesday come here and say, but stay out of our county. And that is a position that the First Amendment protects. And they can have personal views, but not about religious values, but not want government to exercise those same values. So as a result, you'll have the decision. I don't think that the proponents can demand or even expect that you vote your conscience, but they're going to certainly hope so. And now I have to go do a Meals on Wheels route, so I will thank you for your time.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, I want to thank you all to allow this to be here and present our opinion. First of all, I'd like to introduce myself as a proud Kurdish Muslim American citizen in the city of Sioux Falls. I don't like to say that, but I might be the oldest refugee right now in this room in the city of Sioux Falls. I came to the city of Sioux Falls in 1977 as a refugee. And I always humble and appreciate Lutheran Social Services. At that time, they sponsored me to be here with my wife and my beautiful 7-month-old daughter. At that time, people with their heart sponsoring us and supporting us for many, many years. And one reason I've been successful life in this town because people was there with me for a long time. With that being said, I'd like to let you know most of you know me, I'm not a politically correct individual. Okay? I am honored to hear from some younger refugees spoke today. But the truth is, in city of Sioux Falls, and I hope you guys not cut me down very fast, we have three groups of people in Sioux Falls taking the issue of refugee immigrant. The first group is a good citizen of this community. They have an open heart, and they love to see the people who need help to be part of our community and have a successful life for themselves, for their children. They don't have any political opinion or not being told by any organization to what they say, what they not say. They are just good citizens of our community. The second group, which for last 5-6 days, I look in my Facebook and I look in all these hatred comment been said, and you guys might receive some of those about refugee immigrant in the city of Sioux Falls. Those group is, some of them is ignorant, they don't have any information, and some of them is racial issue they have against people from different color and different religions and different nationality. I want to remind the commissioner and I want to remind the people is in this room. What I say, I don't need any disrespect to anybody, but in every culture and every ethnic and every religious, we have a few bad apple. So because of that, we not should be treat everybody else the same way. Believe me, for 4 years I live in Sioux Falls, I've been called every dirty name possible in the book.
Oh dear, I'm gonna need to have you wrap it up, sorry.
It is tough to present what you want in 3 minutes, and I hope you allowed me. The next point I try to make.
I need to have you wrap it up, I'm sorry. I need to, otherwise I'm gonna have to give everybody else a lot of extra time.
I want to hear the truth. That's the problem, that I respect that. The county, I support 100% refugee immigrant coming to city of Sioux Falls. But with that, I am asking you to make sure refugee immigrant been taken care of it properly, because we have 100 refugee immigrant in city struggling every day and nobody there to help them and supporting them.
Okay, thank you for coming this morning, I appreciate it.
We don't want to hear the truth.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chairman Bender and Commissioners. I appreciate it. I'm Dr. Dave Kapaska. I'm the interim chair of the Sioux Falls Chamber. Early in my career, I was a pilot in the military during Vietnam time, and I got to visit an awful lot of the countries where our new Americans have come from. And they welcomed me there, and I began my appreciation for what the world was all about and how this all fits together. I'm here not so much to tell stories, but I met with my mentee yesterday, who happens to be from the Congo, who escaped with his family under fire to Eastern Africa to be moved here 4 years ago, and I don't think we can imagine what under fire means here. And if our families were under fire in South Dakota, I bet we'd be trying to get to Minnesota or Iowa, ridiculous as it may sound. But most of all, I just wanted to say on behalf of the 2,000 businesses that are members of the Chamber of Commerce and the 80,000+ employees that they represent, many of whom are new Americans that we need very badly in our workforce, let alone our hearts, and we support a positive vote on this from the entire chamber. So thank you very much. Appreciate
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for just having a meeting today for the refugee condition where we are and what we're going to do about the refugee. I'm a refugee myself. I've been here for 20 years, 24 years, and my son grew up here as a refugee. I went to...
I'm sorry, but can we get your name?
My name is Joo Luo Bala.
Thank you.
Which is, they call me OJ, maybe.
You do.
I think a lot of people know me here because I am the bridge of when the people want to elect, I go to the refugees, so and I introduce them to them. Maybe Jeff may know about that. And I'm really, thanks for the community, Minnehaha County and Lincoln County, and a lot of refugees live in this city. And we are very welcome with the community. But I want everybody to know that when we came from the refugee camp or when we join you here, it's a different life because the other people where they live there and when they come here, life will become very new for them, and it's good. But what I'm going to tell you here, what we have kids who grow up here. Some of them, they went from this Minnehaha County to Afghanistan, to Iraq, who support our community. This is a new generation, and other people who went to school here, even some of them, by the name of state, they went to big university like, they get a good record, and we have a big community here, and a lot of people work hard. Now we didn't see any refugee here. Some of them are working now. They pay their tax, and we want to let you guys know that we do a lot of work together. Of course, we have good people in our society and bad people in our society. But some of the haters people, they include everybody that refugees are doing bad in this state, but we are very good. You can compare it to other states. The people who come here as refugees, they work hard, they pay their taxes, they do everything anybody do like the same everybody do here a long time ago. And I appreciate that you guys welcome us, but we need a help for some time because there are a lot of refugees who came here that are not, well, some of them are not educated, but they educate their kids. But when there are some others, something happened, we don't want to just mention everybody's doing a wrong thing. And that's, I think Kadir mentioned that there are groups who hate refugee here. There are good people who are welcome refugee here. So I'm just saying that for myself, I'm a businessman. I came here 20 years ago. I still have my own business. And other refugee, we have 100 business refugee in this city. Minnehaha
Need to have you wrap it up too.
Yes,
I'm sorry.
I'll do that. I want anybody to make sure that they understand what we are doing with you guys in the community when we next year. So we want you guys to vote yes for refugee because this country is made up by everybody from the refugee, and this is great. That's why this country can very great. Thank you for you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for this opportunity. My name is Ann Sansgard. I'm a fairly new resident of Sioux Falls, but my roots of 79 plus years are all in the Midwest. Growing up, my mother had a little piece of paper on our bathroom mirror, and the words on that paper said, "I can learn something from everyone I meet today." And well into her 100th year, she lived into those words. I have been fortunate enough for more than 40 years to have been blessed by the truth of those words, because over those 40 years, I've gotten to know and work with and learn to love refugees from all over the world. Personally, I have met refugees from Vietnam, Cambodia, Bosnia, Kenya, Congo, Burundi, Cameroon, Mexico, Afghanistan, and Iraq. And what I have learned from them is what true courage looks like. I have learned tenacity, bravery, incredible love and sacrifice for their families. I have learned about kindness and generosity and hope and friendship and incredible gratefulness. My life has been blessed by people from all around the world who are different colors, different races, different ages, and different religions. And I'm here to ask you today to continue to make that opportunity available to yourselves, to me, to our neighbors, to our children and our grandchildren. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Jondi. My first name and last name is Sim. I was born in Iraq, in Kurdistan, North Iraq. I came to the United States in 2012, which is my dreams started. I started from almost zero with no English. I came here in 2012. I was so excited. I was just like so excited, but I didn't know like where I'm going to, and I didn't know anything about the South Dakota. And then I came to South Dakota. Winter come over, it was too much snow and it was cold for me. Yeah, I work hard in my English. I'm always thankful of LSS. They helped me a lot to improve my English. And my first job was I work at greenhouse for about 5 months. And then I realized that I need more education. I decided to go Job Corps in 2013. In 1 year and 2 months, I could learn English. I learned English, and also I got my high school diploma in US, and I got 4 welding certifications. And I decided to come back to South Dakota because this is the state that I love to live here. I'm the only Yazidi. I'm the only one from Yazidi community here, Kurdish Yazidi community. All of them, they live in Nebraska, Lincoln, Nebraska. There are about 700 family over there. So I think I'm the only one that be here in this room, sorry. And there are few families. So I think it is always good to welcome people from other countries, and which is US welcome me with open arm, and I'm so grateful to the United States. I want to talk about the life in back home and why I should say.
You've got about 10 seconds left. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. So I'm sorry. I think it's always good to say yes for voting refugee resettlement.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank
very
you so much.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chairwoman Bender and members of the Commission. I'm Nikki Grande Lee. And I actually thought this morning I'd talk a little bit about the economic side of things. The fact that, we've got a meat packing plant that hires thousands of people, creates lots of jobs that Americans just don't want to do anymore. We've had opportunity to move into other areas. And also the fact that 25% of America's entrepreneurs are actually immigrants and refugees. However, when I came in this morning, I sat down and had a conversation with one of the opponents, and that's changed the direction I'd like to go with this. What I learned from the young man that I sat next to was that as of yesterday, he didn't know who our governor was. He just learned how to say her name. He got talking points that came from a former legislator who likes to spew hateful things. I learned that he'd never been to Lutheran Social Services and learned about the things that they do and how refugees are brought into this country and the way that they're vetted. I learned he didn't know what a refugee camp was like and what it is. He doesn't distinguish between migrants and refugees. He doesn't understand that there is a distinguishment. I also learned he doesn't know that probably America's most famous refugee was Madeleine Albright. And who wouldn't want her in this country? Because of that discussion, I just want to remind everybody that this is being driven by fear. It's being driven by misinformation. And those of us who interact with our refugee community, those of us who've spent time at Lutheran Social Services, we know these things aren't true. The only thing we have to fear is fear itself, right? And so today, I am in support of refugee settlement here in Minnehaha. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bender and distinguished commissioners. My name is Desiree Janssen. I am currently a business owner here in Sioux Falls. I develop product for my industry and I educate new people in my field and provide them a way to begin their own business. I've learned many lessons through my current career, but none of those lessons are as valuable as the ones taught by my experiences with immigrants and refugees. After college, I began working in the Human Resource Department at John Morrell. I am in no way here on the company's behalf, just putting that out there, just speaking about my personal experiences with that company. I do find it extremely important for me to share the experiences I've had with immigrants and refugees while working there. While at John Morrell, I spearheaded an international recruiting project that brought in hundreds of people from around the world on short-term visas to get us through the busy season. I was there every step of the way for these people, from obtaining the visa to getting apartments, furnishing those apartments, setting up transportation to and from work every day, going over general cultural specific information to adapt to Sioux Falls as well. To say that I got to know these people well is definitely an understatement. I also was able to get a very good inside view of the work that LSS does for immigrants and refugees in our city, and they do an amazing, amazing job, above and beyond. After leaving John Morrell, I worked as an ELL, English Language Learner Liaison for the City of Sioux Falls School District. I was responsible for helping all of the families that spoke English as a second language at Hawthorne Elementary School. I would help them get through school smoothly by working as the bridge between the parents and the teacher. My fondest memories and most valuable lessons and experiences were the ones with the refugees and immigrant families I met through these positions I held. I have many refugee and immigrant families that are close enough to be considered my own now. I cannot begin to explain how greatly my life has been blessed by them, and I can only hope to be the same for them. You don't know true hospitality until you've been welcomed into the home of an immigrant or refugee family, truly. These are people with stories much harder than ours in most cases, as you know. Their will to do well, succeed, acclimate, and just be able to provide stability for their families is admirable. I know because I've witnessed it exactly. I get emotional every time I talk about it because it's impacted me so much. I've witnessed it exactly 509 times. That's the number of families I've directly worked with and gotten to know over the years, 509. I know the heart of the people that are coming to our country and looking for safety and for security. And I know that we would all be better for welcoming them in with open arms, open hearts, and open minds. Resettling refugees is hard work.
I'm going to need you to wrap it up, too. I'm going to be the evil
Yes,
person
no,
here
you
today,
got
I
it.
can tell, so I apologize.
Yes, last thought. Refugee resettlement is hard work, but so is everything worth fighting for. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, commissioners, brothers and sisters here. My name is Cooper Caraway. I'm the elected president of the Sioux Falls AFL-CIO. The Sioux Falls AFL-CIO represents over 30 local unions and thousands of union members here in the Sioux Falls area. And I want everybody to mark it down. This is a historic day. Very rarely do you hear the AFL-CIO and the Chamber of Commerce on the same page. Union and management, we usually butt heads a little bit. That's right. But today we are on the same page. You see, this year, 2020, the South Dakota Federation of Labor is celebrating its 100-year anniversary. And many of our unions, the folks all over this area, bricklayers who build the schools, the electricians who keep the lights on, to our own county highway department who make sure that the roads are plowed and folks can get to work, to the fire department, to the librarians and teachers and custodians, all of us. Many of these unions were founded by refugees. They were founded by Polish and German refugees, by French refugees, by refugees from all different kinds of countries from all over the world. They founded the labor movement here in South Dakota. They founded the labor movement across this country. Many refugees fought and died and sat in jail and were executed so that we can enjoy our weekends, so that we could have an 8-hour day. None of those things were guaranteed before. Previously, without the work of those refugees that came before me, previously my daughter would not be able, my daughter's 7 years old, she would not be able to be sitting in a nice classroom getting a good education right now. She would be sweating and coughing in a mine or a mill somewhere. Child labor was very common before the labor movement. So the AFL-CIO and the Sioux Falls labor movement is 100% in support of settling refugees. Now, I want to bring up one issue that hasn't been brought up yet. We hear folks from the right and the left who claim to speak on behalf of the working class. We have our own institutions, and we want to speak for ourselves. We hear South Dakota politicians talk about a workforce shortage. The way that translates for everyday workers in South Dakota, American and non-American, the way that translates for everyday workers is that South Dakota has become the ranked 47th in workplace safety. What that means is that South Dakota workers die at work at a rate that is more than twice the national average. They die at work at a rate that is over twice the national average. And that is a direct result of a workforce shortage. When you have short staff, when you don't have fully staffed projects, institutions, when you don't have fully staffed businesses, then a lot of times safety concerns fall through the cracks and people get hurt and people die. The Sioux Falls AFL-CIO and our I know what the wrap it up look looks like. The Sioux Falls AFL-CIO and our thousands of members in over 30 local unions stand with refugees here. We support this letter here to call for consent for refugee resettlement, and we surprisingly stand with the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Hi.
Greetings, Chairwoman Bender and the rest of the commissioners. I'm Pastor Jonathan Villar, a resident of this county and pastor at Peace Lutheran over on the west side. First, I kind of lament that we're even gathered here for this. I can't think of another occasion where county commissioners are asked to approve who is allowed to live in this county. And so just my thoughts are with you as you have to make this choice. But if we're going to be here, then I think we might as well celebrate refugee resettlement. In my line of work, I get to speak to any number of people who have been relocated here as refugees. In their stories, is when you dig into them as people, are stories of pain, of struggle, of war and strife. But at the core of all these stories is also stories of hope and resiliency. They fit, as recent as their stories are, they fit within the history of this nation and those who have come before. Refugee resettlement is as American as baseball and apple pie. And it's a great gift that we get from these stories, a reminder of the founding of this nation and the stories of hope that have come from generations before. So as an American, I can strongly support this measure proposed today. But also as a person of faith, as a pastor, I can go through all the biblical references that speak of welcoming and caring for others, but I only have 3 minutes, so I won't even begin. But we are compelled to look at each other with a sense of humanity, recognize that God has created each of us as individuals, and that God's care over us, and that these powers of and the hope that we are united in helps us to overcome the fear and division that might be present with us. So I hope and pray for each one of you today and ask that you vote in favor of this request from Lutheran Social Services and the Center for New Americans. as a celebration of who we are and the American spirit.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Julian Bowden, and I am a resident here in Minnehaha County, Sioux Falls, also city council candidate for the Northwest District here in Sioux Falls. I'm going to keep this short because I believe personally it's extremely impactful for the testimony of the refugees themselves to be heard over my voice. Outside of being a business owner, a husband, and a father, I'm also a state law enforcement officer, and I've served in that capacity for almost 10 years now. My wife and I have had the privilege of serving this community in various ways, whether it's been through organizations like Establishing Sustainable Connections, South Dakota Voices of Justice, South Dakota Voices for Peace, the Multicultural Center in Sioux Falls, and the Sioux Falls YMCA. Every interaction that we've had with refugees has been a positive and beneficial impact for our community. We've coached young men and women in basketball. We've watched men and women work tirelessly to earn a living, to support their family, and to learn what we consider to be the American way. According to 2017 census data, a little over 48% of immigrants and refugees speak multiple languages, including English. In comparison, just a little over 21% of American-born citizens speak multiple languages. We know that due to incarceration rates, immigrants and refugees are 47% less likely to be incarcerated versus American-born citizens. It has been said that simply looking at someone is good enough to classify them as a terrorist because they may look Middle Eastern. I point to that as false, and here's why. Since 2010, there have been 54 mass shootings that classify as domestic terrorism, along with countless other acts of terrorism. More than 73% of those acts of terrorism were performed by white men. It is important to stand against white supremacy in this country. It is important to stand against white supremacy in this county and in this city. What's even more important than speaking against white supremacy is acting against white supremacy. There are more than 137 languages and dialects, cultures, and tribes represented in Sioux Falls. Historically, we have been a community that thrives because of our diversity. We are a patchwork quilt. A lot of times we think of our community as being a melting pot, but I like to think of it as a quilt. Each of us are different, but equally important in creating something amazingly beautiful. The question that we must ask ourselves is, how do we be anti-racist in support of our citizens? And I'd like to leave you with a quote from Martin Luther King Jr. There comes a time when silence is betrayal. Our lives begin to end the day we become silent and about things that matter. In the end, we remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. So today I ask you to consider this quote when making your decision on the proposal, and I ask for your support in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Bender, Commissioners. My name is Mike Lynch. I'm Director of Investor Relations for Forward Sioux Falls. And though it's been said in numerous ways, you know, from a humanitarian perspective, this issue's really paramount to who we are as a nation. Historically, the U.S. has been prideful as a country that provides safe harbor for those seeking refuge from persecution. We've done this because it's the right thing to do. This issue is also impactful from the standpoint of advancing economic and workforce opportunities for the Sioux Falls area, which is key to the mission of Forward Sioux Falls. The non-farm employment growth in the Sioux Falls MSA has been significant. 91,000 net new jobs since 1987, an unemployment rate at 2.3%, labor participation rate, which is basically those age 18 to 65 who are employed, is at 74%, which is 12% higher than the national average. Refugees have been an important contributor to this equation. They have been reliable employees and are a vital part of helping businesses grow. Forward Sioux Falls believes continuing to add to our population is extremely important to enhance the workforce efforts as well. From 1856 to 1987, the MSA grew by 124,500 people. Over 142,000 net new residents since 1987 have been added. And you probably know in the last several years, an average of 5,000 new residents to our MSA. While the number of refugees among the new residents may be small comparatively, through the great work of LSS to prepare these individuals to become contributing members of our community, they are eager to learn employable skills and become committed employees. Finally, as we continue to vigorously compete with other states for new businesses, for conferences, for tournaments to our area, if we deny consent for refugee resettlement, it will adversely affect this effort. We have witnessed this in the past with other issues, and we simply can't afford to jeopardize this opportunity. Thank you very much for considering consent for refugee resettlement, as this will continue to prove to be a positive step for our city, county, and state.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Vincent Don. I'm a 28-year-old resident and business owner in Minnehaha County. I'm not a refugee. My parents are. Similar stories to others here, fled war-torn country, came here. They actually ended up in California, but then they decided that wasn't good enough. They heard about the best little city in America in 1990, and they packed their bags and came up here. And my parents have worked hard their entire lives. They put 2 of us kids through college. I have the freedom to do so many things I never thought I could. Every winter, my dad wears 2 coats, and he says, "It's so cold." And I ask him, "Dad, why are you doing this? Why are we here?" He said, "Well, because this is the best place that we could have for you." And he truly means that. So my parents, I think they embody the American dream. The American dream is something sort of, the freedom to earn an honest and good living, the freedom to raise a family, the freedom to give your family and the next generation more opportunity than you had. My parents have definitely done that. I know that is a common trend through all of us, refugee, native-born alike. That's the American dream we all believe in. And today, last year, my parents closed and they were able to buy the building with which they started their business. So now they're property owners. They went from refugees fleeing their country, having nothing, and now they own property and they're part of the community, and they really do embody the American dream. So I strongly urge all of you to consider, what is it, the legacy you want to leave? What do you want to teach your children? What is the American dream that we are pushing today? Because as far as I know, it hasn't changed. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to make sure, I know that there are folks in an overflow room next door, and so if there's anybody in that overflow room that wanted to speak on behalf or in favor of this issue, I want to make sure they have time to come over. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Good morning.
Hi. What's up? My name's Tracy, or Trey. You can just call me Trey. My name's Trey Mendez. I'm just going to be real with you guys. I'm not into politics. I normally don't come to this stuff. I've just started to realize that my vote matters and my voice matters. And I just want to be straight up honest with you. In 1976, Lutheran Social Services in the United Methodist Church took on a family of 10 from Santiago, Chile. And really, my mom is from Yapalo, my dad is from Santiago. Long story short, they came to the United States. They met out in California. There was a shootout across the street when I was in kindergarten, and that's when my family had decided that we were going to get away. And luckily, we had somewhere else to be able to call a home, and that was Sioux Falls, because in 1976, they took a chance on a family and accepted them. And there was no one to translate. They had no one to have anyone to communicate with them. Washington High School did everything that they possibly could to get this family, to get them a home, to get them educated, to get them jobs. My grandfather was the YMCA janitor for over 35 years, So it's just to say that if we can do it in 1976, 44 years ago, why are we talking about this now? This should have been a subject that it should have never been brought up. Why stop? Because of them being first generation, seeing the potential that I have within myself, from the amazing impact that I've had on the community, knowing that I can make a difference, I became a yoga instructor, and I teach hip-hop yoga. And my goal is to teach yoga to every single one of you. I don't care what size you are. I don't care what color you are. I don't care. I want all of us to be united and to be the real, true word of community. And at the end of that, it is unity. And I ask that we keep that going. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Good morning.
Good morning. So I'm a little nervous. I had to talk myself to coming up here and speaking with you all. I know that this is a privilege for me.
I'm sorry, but if you could give your name.
Sorry. My name is Regina Ajak, and I'm a refugee from South Sudan. I was born in Sudan and immigrated to Egypt when I was 5 years old and came to the United States when I was about 9 years old. I honestly want to urge you to ask you, what is it that's causing us to sit here and ask ourselves that we cannot allow a decent human being who wants a better life for themselves to grow, to earn a decent living, to live a prosperous life, an abundant life. What is it that's causing us to say that they can't have that life? What is it? Because beneath every skin, beneath each person, there's a human being. And I'm sorry, I wasn't ready for this, but that's that's what I want to ask each of us to look deeper and ask ourselves, why are we doing this? Anyways, my story, I was born in Sudan, and as a young girl, I always knew that there's so much more to life than me growing up to be married to a husband, because that's what I was told, that I needed to grow in a household where I needed to learn how to cook, clean, and just learn the basic needs of being a wife, because that was my goal when I grew up. But I knew that there's so much more, and I knew that God was listening to me when I was sitting there and asking myself, is this all to life? And so God answered my prayers when my parents decided to refuge to Egypt to come to the United States. Coming to the United States, it was not easy. We started off in a small apartment in Dallas, Texas, in a very poor neighborhood. The school that I went to, I spoke zero English, and I was made fun by kids because of my skin color. It was not easy. It was not an easy journey for me, but I knew that God was always with me, and through that journey, I encouraged myself that, you know, I have a privilege that I came to the United States, and I have an opportunity to grow and to grow beyond what I was told, that I'm just a woman, that my role is just to please a husband, a man. And that's why through my struggles of cries, of being bullied, being discriminated against, I knew that I had a higher purpose, and I knew that I wanted to do better for the world. So I pushed through, I cried, and by the time I got to high school, I got pregnant at a young age due to, you know, lack of...
I'm sorry, I'm going to need you to wrap it up.
Sorry.
Okay.
But yeah, like I went through a lot of struggles. Where I am right now in life, I am a full-time student. I work for the courthouse as an interpreter. I have 3 children, which I'm raising by myself. And I just want you all to hear my story, and I wasn't ready for this, so but just hear my story, that I'm a human being, and beneath all of that, I just want a better life. And I think that's what each and every refugee that comes to the United States, that's what they're looking for, a better life, not to commit crimes, not to hurt anyone, but just a better life. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning. My name is Michael Huber, and I'm a 4th generation South Dakotan. And I didn't plan to speak, but I came in support of South Dakota Voices for Peace. I'm a board member with that group. And I just want to say that I am just sickened by what this administration is doing to every community across this country. Because as Trey mentioned earlier, when I grew up in school in South Dakota at a public school system, we had no discussions of this type, and we were bringing in refugees at that time with no problem, and we are not having any problems in this community. There are not problems in this country that this administration is trying to vet us against each other. So please vote in favor of bringing refugees into our community. And I would like to even see you go further and say, we would like to double that. We want to go triple that. We want to go 10 times that. We want these people here. When I moved away from here 8 years ago and have moved back, this community is so much robust, better than it was 8 years ago, 10 years ago, and it's because of the refugees. It's because of the diverse amount of people that are brought in here. I see a Trump hat over here, and I think I know who this individual is, and he supports this type of evil administration. Please vote
can
for
you
it.
please, yeah, thank you. All right. That, I believe, I don't see anybody else here to speak in favor of this. So I'm going to turn it over, and the folks, I think there were at least a couple of folks that wanted to speak against it. This would be your opportunity. Same rules apply. So try to limit your comments to 3 minutes, or you'll get the look that I've been giving the other people, I guess. So.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you, Ms. Bender and the rest of the commissioners here. And thank you for all the people that have spoke before me very eloquently. And I'm sure that they are all good people at heart.
I'll need you to identify yourself for the record.
My name is Dr. Terry Lee LaFleur, and I'm a candidate for governor in 2022. I also ran for governor in 2018. Mr. OJ, where's Mr. OJ? There he is. He came from a large family. I did too. I'm the youngest of 10 children, and yeah, there was fighting in the house. But we always had Mom to hold things together. My dad left when I was 3 years old. It's like the old Johnny Cash song. But and he didn't leave anything to Mom and me, just nothing. But I want to talk about some PowerPoint or some points of issue here. Talking points. First of all, there's no such thing as a government-funded program. Every program on the state and federal level is funded by taxpayer dollars. That's your dollars. That's these people's who work for a living. It's their dollars too. Those funds are supposed to be spent for the betterment of the community at large, all of us included. And the bills that you guys paid here by vote today came from those funds, from taxpayers. The economy in South Dakota isn't strong enough to support additional refugees. There are two types of people that want to come to the United States, and we welcome them with open arms. Immigrants, by definition, are people who want to come here and assimilate and become citizens of the United States. They go through the process. They become citizens, legalized, and they raise their hand and they swear to take the oath to uphold the Constitution. Good or bad, the Constitution is the law of the land. We have homeless people right here in our community and across this nation who are dying in the streets because they have no place to go. They can't get a job. They're competing with more and more immigrants and refugees who are here for those same jobs. They want to work. There's no such thing as an American citizen who doesn't want to work. I mean, I'm a disabled person, and I guarantee you, I wish I could work a 40-hour job. But my physical maladies won't allow me to do that. We have veterans just alike who are here, who have been fighting to keep our freedom secure. They've been maimed. They've lost arms. They've lost legs. They've lost the ability to think. Some of them have lost the ability to even speak. Some of them don't even look like they've been harmed, but they have PTSD, and it's a real thing. Statistics tell us nationwide up to 22 of our veterans daily commit suicide because they have absolutely lost hope. They can't find work. I mean, they were specialized in the fields that they served in the military. Some of them had the ability to drive tanks and aircrafts. One fellow here was a pilot. Thank you for your service. But when they come into the general population, those jobs are not out there. I mean, how many people do you know at the packing house that drive a tank or fly a jet? It's not there. They have to look at other ways of making a living. They have to learn new job skills. And then they have to compete with everybody else. And it's overwhelming to them. There's areas in our city right here as we speak, and whether you want to realize the truth or not, there's areas in our speak that are basically no-go zones. The Sioux Falls Police Department has admonished this fact. Mr. Tapio, I don't know if he's here today, but if he was here, he would speak to the same issue, that his constituents like mine, and I talk to people all the time, hundreds of people every day on chat.
I'm going to
okay?
need you to wrap it up. Thank you.
Bottom line here, I don't believe that this decision should be decided by this commission. POTUS Trump told the governors of all the collective states, he said, I'm leaving this decision up to the governors of the state. Apparently, Christy
You need to wrap it up.
Okay, I'm wrapping it up. Apparently Nome is passing that buck down to you guys on a county-by-county basis. But when this goes south, and it will
Okay,
someday.
I'm sorry, but you don't sound like you're wrapping it up. I'll need you to sit down,
You've
please.
interrupted me 3 times now. Please.
You have 2 more seconds.
I think you should not be making this decision. You're putting your necks on the chopping block in the next election. Let Christy Nome make the decision. That's what POTUS Trump
Okay,
wanted
thank
her
you.
to do.
You need to sit down. Thank you very much.
Morning. My name is Matt Condon. I live in the Sioux Falls area. I'm not denying that these charities, I'm very nervous. I'm not denying that these charities have helped out individuals. I'm not denying that, but the problem is that anecdotal evidence does not justify the evidence, does not justify the action of bringing in a large influx of foreigners into America. The helping others argument that they've been using, even citing our religion, is not a good way to interpret it, because you can easily help these people on their side of the ocean and not here. And it happens that most of the people that these people want to bring in are Muslims, and I wanted to touch on that topic. Islam is not compatible with the way South Dakota was founded. Islam, whenever they come into an area in large numbers, they create parallel societies. They create incompatible parallel societies. They subjugate women. They are extremely intolerant of gays. And there is an area in a suburb of Paris where they were not even allowing women into a Muslim-dominated restaurant. A restaurant that was built by Frenchmen, but it had so many Muslims in it that it eventually became part of Muslim culture. And French women, these weren't Muslim women that had to follow their rules, they were French women that had to leave the restaurant because the Muslim men were not used to seeing women in their restaurants.
He has his opportunity to speak, so you can sit down. Thank you. No, you need to sit down. He has his opportunity to speak right now.
Seconds left.
He's reporting his...
Another point I want to touch on is
Please
money.
sit down.
These people that they want to bring in have historically costed the state thousands and thousands in translators, and like the governor candidate back there pointed out, we can't afford that. We're stretched budgetarily. We just simply don't have the money to bring in these people, and the LSS is a beneficiary of a larger corporation called the Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services Incorporated. That's incorporated. That means that there is a corporate interest behind all this. They're not doing it for charity. They're doing it for money. This is being done. The Commerce Department wants to do this to undercut wages. That's another reason. That's one of their monetary motivations for doing this. And these homeless veterans, by bringing more people into the economy to bring them in, will certainly make life extra hard on them. And these veterans have actually done something for our country. They should be given preference, not foreigners that we don't know anything about. And I don't know how much time I got left, probably like 25 seconds. Less than that. So, yeah, so my next point's a little bit more complicated than that, and I don't have time, so thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning, it is. Good morning. I'm Pastor Jeff Hayes from Faith Temple Church. We have the Faith Temple food giveaway every Friday out at the fairgrounds. And what I would suggest is that I'm thinking that you're going to vote yes on this, but I would like to have you have an amendment to it that there would be more vetting and more education. More vetting and more education. We have fed probably thousands of refugees over the course of 10 years at the Faith Temple food giveaway. And it's been an education for us. And at the church, too, We've had refugee churches come to our building, and at no charge, we've had them meet in our building for the past almost 20 years. But I say this from experience that it is important to vet and further vet people. I was talking to a man who is one of the leaders in one of the groups here in the city of Sioux Falls, and I was asking him about the violence that goes on around the world and how Americans have been killed because of their agendas. And all he said to me was, and it changed my life and that of my family, he said, if you offend us or religion, we have the right to kill you. And it shook me to the core, and my family too. Also, at the food giveaway, we've noticed, in talking about vetting, I hope that people are more vetted when they come to our nation. I appreciate refugees and immigrants. They've made our life a whole lot more comfortable. I love their food. You have much better food than us Norwegians, and it is incredible. But as far as education is concerned, I appreciate people that educate the refugees and the immigrants who come to say this is why America works. All of us are equal. Out at the food giveaway, we've had situations where hundreds of people have gathered, and men from certain religions and so on will go right to the head of the line and take as much food as they want. And we'll say, no, we're in America. All of us are equal, and all of us get the same amount of food. And so I think it's important to educate refugees and immigrants in the principles of the United States of America. Thank you for your time. And I can't believe that I'm a preacher, and I said things in less than 3 minutes here today. Thank you.
Duly noted. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody else who wanted to speak against this issue? I know there are people in the overflow room. If you'd like to speak, you can go ahead and come up to the podium. You could identify yourself and limit your comments to about 3 minutes.
My name is Gary Swenson. I'm a Yankton County Commissioner, current. I'm also a Vietnam-era veteran, disabled, service-connected disability. My family, my wife and I, veterans served from the Civil War to Iraq, Afghanistan, and all the wars in between. Besides that, my grandfather came from Denmark in 1897. He came at the age of 7 by himself. When he got to New York, his father had made a sign around his neck. It said, "Please help me, I'm headed for Viborg, South Dakota." People helped him get on the train from New York to Chicago, from Chicago to Sioux City, and he walked from Sioux City to Viborg, where his brother was an established cattle feeder. He had 5 children. The oldest was my father. When my father wanted to learn Danish, he said, "No, you're born here in the United States. You speak English." The other thing I'd like to say is that there was a man here that said that he'd been called every name in the book since he'd lived here for a long time. I know that feeling. I have empathy and sympathy for him. When I was in the military in about 1971, about the time that our Governor Kristi Noem was born and in diapers, I was beat on the chest in an airport by protesters and called a baby killer. I think I understand that a little better. Currently in the United States, we have about 630,000 homeless people, a lot of them in California, as you know. But of those, there's about 67,000 military veterans that are homeless. And I would ask you people to maybe defer your decision for today and get a little more information from other people. I'm not an expert, but I do, like I said, I do have lots of work experience. I spent 50 years in the work zone, all kinds of different places, 2 petroleum pipelines, a deputy sheriff, Department of Defense in Chicago, and a lot of other things. And I'd just like to say that do a little more thinking about this, because like I said, our governor didn't know about the hippie movement, the 60s, the illegal drugs that were shipped over in caskets from Vietnam. And I just feel that you're rushing into this a little bit too fast. I'm not against people coming in. Like I said, my grandfather came here, worked hard his life and raised a family and lived to be 93 years old. But I'm probably about out of my 3 minutes. So thank you very much for letting me speak, and pray for our troops.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak against this issue? Good morning.
My name is Joanna Oakland, and I'm not much of a public speaker, so kind of bear with me. I do a lot of talking on social media, which is kind of the way I like it, a little safer behind the screen. It's the first time I've ever come to this meeting, but I definitely feel like you guys need to hear a perspective that nobody's touched on today. A lot of people are proponents for moving these people into our city, and nobody seems to talk about where they're going to live. And I'm going to tell you that a lot of them live in my neighborhood. I'm a real estate broker that happens to work from home, so I can be home with my kids. I'm also a renter with Dunham Property Management. We're one of the families that are renting these homes that are essentially going to be ours in 2 more years. So a lot of us have a financial interest in staying in those homes, probably to pay off student loans, whatever situation that is, but there are people that are renters. I've been in my house for 5 years. So as far as I'm concerned, other than a piece of paper, that's my house. I'm the one that, plants the flowers. I'm the one that mows the lawn, etc. My son 2 years ago got in a fight in our neighborhood in Granite Valley. And he got in a fight because he was wearing a United States Navy shirt. And a kid that was in our neighborhood that happened to be a refugee got really offended by that shirt. And my son also happens to be a son of a 22-year Navy veteran, 4 tours in the Middle East, and the son of a police officer. So I take some very big offense to that he cannot play in the park in his own neighborhood. A lot of things go under the radar in the city. Sometimes if the police aren't involved, it goes under the radar. There are numerous situations of kids fighting. My son's 12 years old, okay? He shouldn't even know what a fight looks like at this point. Those kids do not go to that park unless they're adults there. Grandparents that come from other neighborhoods, my parents live in Harrisburg, they don't even bring my kids to that park. The kids have to play in the yard. So that's kind of the part of the story that nobody wants to tell you. Nobody is against refugees. And in fact, one thing I wanted to kind of put on the record here, I talk a lot about this issue on Facebook, and a lot of people think I'm just a mean African American. But what a lot of people don't seem to understand is I came to Sioux Falls because of Lutheran Social Services 40 years ago. And luckily, somebody took a chance on this kid 40 years ago that my parents are 100% Norwegian, if you get my point. So having to adopt any kid like me wasn't the most popular choice. But my father's from Cameroon, Africa, and one of the reasons I was raised here is to get me out of that country and to keep me safe. And the one thing that I am just in disbelief right now is we have people that are making decisions that haven't taken an African history class, have not taken a geography or religion class, and do not know why there are serious reasons why we need to think about what we are doing. Because you are putting people together from different regions that haven't gotten along for 1,000 years. And the fact that you think they're going to put them all here and everything's going to be fine, it's not going to be fine. We need to do some more research. We're not pointing the finger at any direction. But there's other cities that have done this, and it's failed. And I'm telling you, it's failing in my neighborhood right now. And the landlords, sometimes their hands are tied because we're calling them going, get rid of these guys, and they can't. Or we're calling the police and going, hey, I'm tired of this. We can't. But I've got a 5-year-old and a 12-year-old that come home on a bus learning swear words that they shouldn't know at 5 years old. Okay, so there are some cultural things that we're not discussing right now that are affecting kids that make their home in Sioux Falls that shouldn't have to put up with that. So I'm
sorry, your time is
okay.
up.
Like I said, just you need to listen to all parties, but you need to take some time and listen to the people that are living in these neighborhoods that are heavily populated with refugees.
Thank you. Anyone else who would like to speak against? All right, well, we have listened to a lot of people this morning. I really want to commend all of you for coming, for taking the time to be here and be part of the process, and being brave enough to speak for those of you that came forward. And I'm going to turn it over to the commissioners now, if they have any questions or if there are any comments. Commissioner Heiberger.
I just have a question for Betty Olekamp, and I texted her yesterday or emailed her yesterday and asked her if she'd bring a question that was proposed to me over, I don't know, email or text message or whatever this last week was, what is the financial position of LSS when they're bringing in immigrants, because we have heard that there's a financial gain. And so I just asked Betty if she would at least speak to that, because I don't think that was in our presentation last week. So if you would just kind of talk about that a little bit, please.
Thank you, Commissioner Heiberger. Betty Oldenkamp, CEO, Lutheran Social Services. So the work that we do with refugees upon arrival into the community is supported through federal dollars. There are a number of different grant sources involved with that, and we also raise money through fundraising efforts for the support. The programs, the federal dollars are to reimburse direct expenses. Generally, there is, some programs will allow a 5% for administration, some will allow, something higher that's approved through the federal government. But our work in this area is what we would call a loss leader. We run a deficit budget in this program. That's why we have to do the level of fundraising that we do to continue this work. Over the years, that has, at least in my time with LSS, ranged from maybe 30 or 40,000 to 100,000. Our current budget position in this program is negative by about 180,000. So it is something that for us is, it's our mission. We're a faith-based organization. That's why we do the work that we're doing at a financial loss. We have some funds that come to us that are passed on direct to refugees, as we talked about in the briefing. That is only during their first 8 months in country. It ends after that point. This is an early self-sufficiency program. Beyond those, that initial cash assistance and the refugee medical assistance, eligibility for any other type of programs or services is the same as you and I would face. There's no special consideration beyond that 8 months for someone who arrives here with a refugee status.
Any other questions for Betty as long as she's up? Commissioner Benega.
Betty, I've received lots of questions about the vetting process. It seems to be a misunderstood process. Could you just summarize that, quote, 18-month process that people go through to make this process work?
Yes, Commissioner Benega, thank you. The vetting process that you hear about actually happens while an individual is still outside of the United States. It is first a level with the UNHCR, the United Nations High Commission on Refugees, and once that level is passed, then a candidate for placement is identified for the United States. There's a second level of security clearance or vetting. One of the things that President Trump did at the start of his administration was he did put a hold on all refugee arrivals so that they would have an opportunity to review that vetting and security clearance process. And there were some changes made in that. I would encourage, and I brought with me if anybody wants it, but you can go to, the Department of Homeland Security's website and find a review of their improved security procedures for refugees that are entering the United States. So it's Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, and the national intelligence agencies that do this process. This is done before a person is ever approved for travel into the United States. So that is the vetting process. It is not done by LSS. It is not done by our national contract agency, Lutheran Immigration and Refugee Services. It's done by the federal government.
Thank you for doing that. I know I've been educated on that, but I think it's good for the general public to be aware of the fact that this is a significant vetting process, in fact, probably more significant than any other process.
Yes. Refugees are the most highly vetted entrant into the U.S. of any immigration status.
Thank you.
Commissioner Karski.
Thank you. Thank you, Betty. That vetting process, from the time a person enters a refugee camp to the time that they set foot on U.S. soil, typically how long does that take?
Well, you will hear Commissioner Karski, and you probably, some of the folks that spoke today came as children, but people can be in refugee camps for, we've talked with people that it's 10 years, it's longer. The vetting process itself is 18 months to 24 months. And then there's another, depending upon what country you're coming from, there are even higher levels in the vetting. It's called a security advisory opinion that, again, is issued by the National Homeland Security, Department of State, Intelligence Services that determine if there's higher risk from certain countries. when you think of the millions of people that are living in refugee camps and that less than 1% of refugees in the world are resettled into a new country, it's because they want to go home. So repatriation is what people desire, and that typically is why they will stay in those camps for so long, is because they are waiting for it to be safe for them to return to their countries. And then travel here, once they're approved, is impacted by where the overall ceiling is at in terms of arrivals into the state, a number of factors that play into that.
You mentioned something that, if I may, Madam Chair.
Sure.
They want to go home, but eventually they realize they probably can't. So is there a path to citizenship required when you're admitted to this country as a refugee?
When you enter the country as a refugee, you arrive with legal status to be here. The process to becoming a citizen at a minimum is 7 years, but they have to be here 5. They have to be here a year first, but so that's why I brought the experts along with me. But it's not a mandatory requirement. You do need to keep legal status. So if you're not going to become a citizen, you are going to have to go back and renew your paperwork and keep your green card active.
Okay.
Further questions? Comments? Commissioner Karski.
I'll start the comments. I found it interesting that President Trump, in his wisdom, allows us to come down to the local level, and I, for one, appreciate it. The part I'm probably not looking forward to, and hopefully I'm reelected next year, is we get to do this every year. So that this isn't the first time we have this conversation, but our refugee numbers have gone from just about 600 down to less than 100. And the president's allowing us to have the voice to say, yes, we welcome people to this community. And I, for one, am not going to be a voice against that. I will. And we don't have to go back very far in our family tree to see when our forefathers came off the boat, basically. For me, it's just a couple of generations. And whether they came as refugees or immigrants, it really doesn't matter. We, at some point, all came from that situation. So I personally am going to vote in favor of this certification and look forward to the conversation again next year.
Commissioner Benega.
Well, I'm going to be supportive. Frankly, this is the right thing to do. This is the American dream that most of us have been able to be born into. It's the first time I can remember that labor and management have agreed on one thing in this community. I've talked to plenty of employers who think that the people that we have as refugees originally come and become some of the better employees that they have, so I think that's extremely important. I enjoy the diversity and the culture that they bring. I think it's the right thing to do. I've had multiple questions about why we're addressing it, and I think Dean has pretty much said what most of us think. And I believe that the vetting process is extraordinarily positive and satisfactory to most of us. So the comments that we heard that weren't favorable are things that we already are working on, like homeless issues, immigration issues. We're working with veterans, things that we don't like to be responsible for, but that's part of our responsibility, and we are addressing all those things. We don't have enough money to do everything. This is one of the few things that, frankly, creates some benefits to our economy. So I will be very supportive of doing this.
Commissioner Heiberger.
I guess we all get to make a comment, so I'm also going to support this. There was a comment that was made that maybe this is, there's a lot of negative comments. I don't think that the negative comments or the positive comments were bad. It's good that we finally are starting to have some of these conversations to dispel some of the fear out there. I think it's a responsibility on everyone's part that we need to be working towards community involvement on both sides. I know that there's a group that I'm involved with kind of on the side that's working to bring together more diverse populations. We need to be speaking to each other. I'll say personally, I don't have a lot of friends who are from diverse cultures. I would love to do that. We need to work together, and if there's a fear out there, you need to be talking. We need to figure out how to work together. My family was an immigrant to this country a long time ago too. I'm also an immigrant to South Dakota. I didn't start in South Dakota. We need to work together to make this a better country. You hear a lot people say, well, they should all speak English. I think that they are, and I hope within 2 generations all their families are speaking English. We still have people in South Dakota that only speak German. And so there are cultures even within our own that have been here a long time that have not learned the English language. That is also on us who speak English to help these people learn to speak English and learn how to be an American citizen. And I think we can do that. I think we're all people. We all have feelings. I'm going to say one more thing. If you know who Ben Carson is, he is a neurosurgeon who's retired and now works in Washington, D.C. But he said many years ago when I heard him say, he said, I'm a neurosurgeon, and when I cut somebody's brain open, they're the same color, and they bleed the same. We all bleed the same. Our brains are the same. Our skin color may be different. We're all people.
Commissioner Barth, did you want to say anything?
Really, it's my turn?
Yes.
Well,
You only get 3 minutes.
No, say it. Oh, I apologize for leaving the room there. I've been drinking coffee since 5:30. Listen, I grew up, and there were conflicts in those days, too. There were, William Penn was afraid of Germans moving to Pennsylvania. There's been even labor unions opposed Italians coming to the United States back in 1900. And, there were Irish gangs and Italian gangs, etc. And I'll say that it's easy to hate people. And people sometimes take that hate and use it for their own purposes. Let's not hate each other. Let's, us proponents of immigration, not hate the opponents. Let's opponents not use that for political ends. And I would say growing up, America was the light of the world. America was the greatest country in the world. It wasn't only till later I found that we actually had any flaws. I mean, as a 15-year-old, I thought America is the greatest, the light of the world. A few minutes ago, we said the Pledge of Allegiance, with liberty and justice for all. For all. Liberty and justice for all. I'm going to support this because it's the American thing to do. God bless America.
Thanks for not using all 3 of your minutes. So, I'm not going to repeat everything. I am also in support of this. A couple of things that we maybe haven't touched on. I did have an opportunity to visit with Health and Human Services here at the county, who does, provide a lot of services to folks in need. And they were able to state that, there are people in need of all colors, folks that have lived here for generations, and some that are newer, but there's no disproportionate utilization of county funds by folks that are immigrants or refugees. I also had an opportunity to visit with law enforcement. Once again, anytime you try to categorize any group with one broad stroke, you miss the whole picture. And of course, there are people of immigrants and refugees that come into contact with our law enforcement system, but there's also lots and lots of folks that have been here for generations, and there's no disproportionate utilization of law enforcement services by any one particular group either. And so I think that, I have had the fortunate opportunity to interact with a lot of folks who are immigrants and refugees, and I've personally had all hugely positive experiences, and have also been in contact with a number of employers and those in business that are desperate for workers and very pleased with the workforce that has been provided through the refugee population. So I personally am strongly in support of this. And with that, I would take a motion.
I would make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We thank you all for coming. I'd like to say we'll be heartbroken if you don't stay for the rest of our agenda. But I would understand. I'll give everybody a minute to clear out if they would.
Can we?
Yeah. We'll go ahead and take a 5-minute recess to allow folks to leave and folks to use the restroom. Appreciate. I'm sorry that the crowd thinned out for you, but
No, thank you.
we're
I thought,
happy to
I
hear
thought
from
they
you.
were all here for me. Shucks.
Yeah.
Foremost, thank you for the actions that you just took. I didn't speak because there were so many eloquent speakers before me, but certainly as a development foundation, we're appreciative of your actions here today, and it's certainly going to send a good, positive message to those companies that we're trying to recruit, those companies that are here, and the talent that we're trying to recruit here as well. So thank you for that. I want to take a little bit of time today to kind of go through some of the things that we've been doing to kind of give you our annual update of some of the activities of the foundation. Again, my name is Bob Munt. I'm the president and CEO of the Sioux Falls Development Foundation. We have really two components of what we do. We look at attraction, retention, and expansion of business and industry, and we also use those same three terms when it comes to talent and labor. So we're trying to attract, retain, and expand the talent that we have here. So hopefully today we'll give you an idea of what we're doing with that. So do I have a clicker, or do I have to kind of motion to someone to click for me?
Shut that door maybe, or push them down the hall?
Over here? All right. Down arrow. Okay, there we go. Okay. All right. So as we look at some numbers, we try to track ourselves by the number of prospects that we have and the number of people that we're working with, companies that we're working with. So this kind of gives you an idea of some of the active prospects that we're working with today. Right now, you see 13 active prospects. We anticipate that we're going to close on a couple of those in the next 90 days, and some of them are also forecasted to close in the next 90 to 120 days. So these are active prospects that we're working on to get them either into Foundation Park or into property here in the Sioux Falls area. Again, just kind of a breakdown, just an idea of what it is that we look at. So we're looking at these different companies that have the opportunity to grow and expand here, but also those that are looking to come into our region. So we code name these. These are not the names of the companies, so we code name these basically so that they remain confidential. But this kind of gives you an idea of the number of acres that they're looking at, the number of the amount of capital that they're looking to invest, and the employees associated with each one of these. The ones that don't have the CapEx and the employees next to them, they have not told us that yet, so we don't have that information that we can put on there. This again shows you some of those other 13 companies that we're looking at. We track these basically once we get them, we track them until they tell us that they're not coming here. So we continue to work those leads, and these are some of those 13 that we're continuing to work. A couple of them very large, a couple of them very small. This is Foundation Park. This is the southern portion of Foundation Park. You can see there that we've got 3 lots that are sold. We've got an option on the lot that you see highlighted in yellow there. That lot is actually Nordica. They've got the option on that. They want to build some additional warehouse space out there. The one that they're building right now is currently 200,000 square feet. They're putting on another 100,000. They've got that pretty much leased already, so they're looking at that next building that they want to put out there as well. This is the property that we own in the northwest corner of Sioux Falls up by Walmart. We've got a buyer that wants to buy that entire piece that we're working with them on right now. We have not been told necessarily what they want to put there, but we will be looking at selling that here in the next, hopefully, 90 days as well. This is a lot along East Benson Road that we own that is also under option right now for development. It's kind of a standalone lot. Topographically, it's not a very usable lot, so we're having to be a little bit flexible with how we sell this particular piece of property as well. And then these are a couple of options that we have that we're working with companies that the first yellow piece is the option that is their number 1 option, and then option 2 is their number 3. Option 2 is their second choice. So we've got 2 of those essentially under option that we're looking at selling. And these are those ones on the chart earlier that showed anywhere from 120 to the rest of the year. So we're hoping to close on those this year as well. Again, this is another one in Foundation Park that's very active right now, looking at 2 different options for that one as well. Also, a big part of what we do is retention and expansion of our existing industries. And Mike Gray with our office is constantly out visiting and meeting with companies throughout Sioux Falls and the region. He works also with the Makita organization and what used to be Nick Fosheim, now looking for replacement for Nick. But also goes out in the Sioux Falls area and talks to existing companies that are looking to grow and expand, and really working with them on the issues that they have to make sure that they get those resolved. So you can see some results there. About 125, 127 companies that were visited. There's about 14 of those that are looking to grow and expand again, so we're wanting to make sure that we work with them to expand. And we have 5 that are identified there as kind of red flags. Those are companies that are might be in jeopardy of closing, might be in jeopardy of being acquired and moved, those types of things. So we're wanting to work with those companies as well to make sure that they stay here. The lower chart kind of breaks up that 127 as to the types of companies that we're calling on. So you can see most of them are in that manufacturing arena, in the trade, transportation, utilities areas. Those are predominantly the ones that we've been calling on. Again, another kind of chart that shows you a little bit about the retention efforts. A lot of what they want is government services, questions answered about government services, so connections to planning and zoning, connections to those types of things that they need in order for their company to expand. Workforce, as you see, is a big part of that as well. And then advocacy, and some of the advocacy things that we come along, we refer those to the chamber because they're really the advocacy arm of Sioux Falls. So we don't do a lot of advocacy, but we roll that to the chamber for their work. Second piece of what we do, a large piece of what we do, is workforce development, and we hear from every company that we talk to about workforce development and what are we doing to do that. So about a year ago, we hired Denise Gazzetta, who's come in and really hit the ground running and put some great programs in place. We're really focusing on talent attraction, talent development internally, as well as business partnerships, the sharing of best practices, and I want to touch on a couple of those. Talent attraction is really reaching outside of Sioux Falls to bring people into this community. So doing things with colleges, universities, tech schools, alumni associations. We've got a program that'll be starting up this next year that'll tap into hopefully our young professionals group and really get them engaged and involved in helping to recruit their friends here to the Sioux Falls region to make sure that we can connect them with the jobs that are available here. We have a software program that we're initiating called Handshake. It's actually an association that we will belong to that connects those college students from anywhere in the country really to jobs that might be available here in the Sioux Falls region. So really pushing that out within the 100 and 120 mile radius to all those colleges and universities there. The second thing that we do is talent development within the Sioux Falls. Again, working with the existing programs that have talent development as part of their program. One of the ones that we did recently was the Second Chance Job Fair, where we utilized the corrections department basically to help us reintegrate people that first-time, second-time offenders that have been in the system back into the system to work. So we did that Second Chance Job Fair. We also do a lot of work with our high schools, getting our high school students engaged and involved in business and industry early on in their high school career so that they have kind of a career path before they graduate from high school so that they can decide, is it tech school that we want to go to? Is it four-year college that we want to go to? Do I want to do a certificate program where I can just get my certificate and move right into a position of work with our companies? So working with a lot of different programs there within the high schools and even the junior highs when it comes to, again, getting them in that career-minded mode to figure out what it is that they want to be when they grow up. So we do that. And the third part of that is the business partnership program. And that is really working with existing businesses and industries to try and plug them into the best practices that are already in place right now, sharing those best practices, connecting them to the types of opportunities that they have, and really sharing their knowledge when it comes to finding new workers. So again, this kind of tells you a little bit about some of the things that we do: talent attraction, talent development, business partnerships. You'll hear terms out there like talent reload, talent draft, those types of things. And those are all ways that we're trying to get people into that employment pipeline so that our companies can contact them and bring them into their companies to engage them in work. Next year, again, we're going to focus on some of these same things, really expanding what we've done from a programmatic standpoint, but really looking at marketing those programs to the people that we're trying to reach. So this next year, we've got a huge marketing outreach program that's going to start reaching out to more colleges, universities, and tech schools in Northwest Iowa, Southwest Minnesota, South Dakota, and again, engaging them into the types of things that we want here in Sioux Falls. So you see things like the Summit basketball tournament. We're going to be doing some electronic marketing during that to some of those Summit League teams that are here. We're reaching out again to a lot of job fairs and those types of things to make sure that we contact those individuals. We've signed a contract with ClickRain. It's an electronic marketing firm here in Sioux Falls that we're going to use to really engage people electronically into what is in Sioux Falls and how they might be able to tap into the workforce and the work needs here. Again, educate, equip, and encourage future workforce. Again, that's part of our high school recruitment efforts, so you'll see a new program coming out on that this year as well. And lastly, this is our Win in Workforce Conference that's coming up on October 21st of 2020. Again, that's the conference that we have, the summit, where we invite in college counselors, employment people, HR folks, people that are trying to connect colleges, universities, and places that graduate potential employees to the folks that are here. So the Win in Workforce Summit is what we do for there. So that's really a big part of what we do, kind of an overall look at what we're doing here this last year. We'll continue to do this next year. I've mentioned before that we spent this last year kind of designing and developing programs. We're going to spend this next year marketing those programs and making sure that we reach as many people as we possibly can to get them to come to work here in the Sioux Falls region. We're also utilizing that same strategy from a marketing perspective, electronic marketing, to look at new companies, being a little more selective on some of our companies as far as what types of companies we want to bring here. But we are going to continue to outreach to those companies electronically as well as physically. So that's what I have for you here today. If there are questions, comments, I'd love to hear those. I want to thank you for your support this past year. I've been here about a year and a half. It's been a great time. I appreciate the support that we have from our elected leaders and the types of things that we do as a community. I think today was a great indicator of what we do right here in this community. So thank you for what you've done.
Any comments or questions? Commissioner Karski.
I did have a question, and thankfully you answered it in the material, but thanks for being here, Bob.
Sure.
You know, my understanding of the younger generation, and my kids are getting to actually be beyond the next generation, I guess, but they don't look for jobs, they look for a place to live. And they do that before they find a job. They make a decision, and I think that decision really begins probably even as young as 15. I know you're going to 17, but
yeah.
So I'm happy to see that you're looking and showing people that Sioux Falls, I mean, as evidenced by the people that were here for the last presentation, is a embracing community and a great place to live, and has a lot going on, so keep it up.
Yeah, there's a program called Talent Draft where I'm a football fan, so I had to use that somewhere. So we use Talent Draft, and we're essentially drafting people, you know, into Sioux Falls. And you know, what we're finding is once people see Sioux Falls and look at what we have and what the region offers, their eyes are opened and they're more than willing to come here. So again,
Even if they wear 2 coats in the wintertime.
even if they have to wear 2 coats in the wintertime, they get used to it, you know, just like we all do, you know. And so again, I think, you know, we're starting to make an impact, and we want to continue to do that.
Commissioner Heiberger.
Just want to say thanks for your presentation, and I had a preview of it about a week or so ago when it accidentally got sent to me a little bit early, but
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Sorry.
accidentally came to me instead of Carol, which I was like, just super excited that you're really pushing the marketing part about it, because yeah, we do have something great here in our county to sell, and I'm glad you're working on it. So thank you.
Well, one of the things that you'll hear over this next year too that we're going to be initiating, and Mike Lynch was here talking earlier, but the next Forward Sioux Falls campaign will begin in 2020 as well. So you'll hear a lot about that coming forward. And again, we encourage you to, give us your input on that as well. What are some of the things that need to be done here in the region? And hopefully we can incorporate some of that in the next Forward Sioux Falls campaign as well. So again, thanks for all you do, and have a great 2020.
Commissioner Barth.
Yeah.
You know, I really appreciate the idea of recruiting people in the way you're talking. And I know that in the past there's been some talk about, you know, you don't need a degree in English, you need a degree in welding, that kind of thing. But I believe if you have a degree in English, you can learn welding. Additionally, I would say I can remember meeting a gal who had a degree in chemistry and couldn't find a job in Sioux Falls. And we need to find ways to, she'd gone to Purdue University,
right.
We need to find ways to use those people. It may not be immediately obvious to everybody, you know, a degree in physics. Unfortunately, a degree in law works for everybody. Just giving her crap. The fact is, we also, in my opinion, need to continue to get businesses that don't use a lot of water and are not polluters. We have a beautifully clean environment and are, you know, unlike, you know, Gary, Indiana or something.
Yeah.
So keep looking for, you know, those kinds of operations where we're using our brains and not chemicals. But thank you for what you're doing. I hope it's very successful. And don't forget, we need jobs in Colton and Del Rapids and Hartford.
Absolutely. Absolutely, all over. Yeah, thank you for bringing it up, Commissioner Barth. One of the things I will point out is that, you know, I mentioned earlier our targets have changed a little bit, and so we're really trying to utilize the whole bioscience arena with Discovery District and kind of bringing in more of the bioscience areas, those higher paying jobs in the bioscience, and really also capitalizing on our association with Dakota State University and the whole cyber technology groups that we have there. We have such a tremendous draw for that kind of stuff, and Sioux Falls is greatly positioned, you know, for that. So I think, you're going to see our focus change a little bit towards that. Not that we don't take manufacturers anymore, we do, but we're certainly going to start to take a stronger look at those biosciences and cyber intelligence and those types of things.
Thank you so much.
Yep, thanks.
Thank you. Thanks for
you
coming, being
very much.
patient.
Okay.
All right. That takes us to item 12, which is to consider a motion regarding the rezoning application 19-08. David, good morning.
Good morning, Commission. David Heinold, County Planning Department. This item, rezoning 19-08, was deferred from last week's County Commission meeting. It was a public hearing last week, and this is to the property owner. The new property owner was notified by mail of this meeting, and they also emailed me back. I've been in communication with them about the request that is before you. The owner of that company that basically stated that they would not like to continue with the rezoning, and I've invited them to the meeting, so if they would like to talk, they can. But the County Planning Commission voted 6-0 with Commissioner Odie abstaining to recommend approval of rezoning 1908. All the documents have been provided to you. I will answer any questions if you have them.
So my understanding is right now we're standing in this kind of long, confusing, convoluted situation is that the application that's before us, the property changed hands while the application was pending, and the current owner of the property has requested that this be rescinded.
Correct. The current property owner, who has now changed hands, has emailed me in writing saying that they would not like to continue.
Okay. So this is a public hearing. Is there anyone here that would like to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Commissioner Heiberger?
Do we have a copy of the letter that says he wants us to rescind it? I mean, that's fine, but I don't know that it was a part of the packet, so.
It has been a really
Yes,
confusing
and we
process.
almost went forward in the wrong direction, and I don't want to make that mistake again. It would be nice to see the letter from the current property owner that says he does not want to go forward.
Excuse me 1 second.
It's hard to imagine this happening again, but if it does happen again, I think we could improve this process. So
I think there's a letter from January 8th that says, David, do not proceed with the rezoning application at this time. Mike Runge is on vacation this week, and I need to discuss with him what his intentions are and why he's applying.
Right. And now we have
So
one from Mike Runge.
yeah, and now we have a new one.
And that's the one I want to see.
January 13th.
Read it, Commissioner.
Yeah,
Bender.
it's dated January 13th from Mike Runge to David, and it says, I do not wish to rezone the Odie property to light industrial at this time. Please pull that application from the agenda. I am filling out the conditional use for mining. The property is already included in my mining permit with the state. Thanks, Mike.
Okay.
So I think the motion that we need is to either approve or not approve this application.
I think take no action.
Yeah, or we could take no action. So,
I would suggest we take no action and just
Second.
let it drop. That would be my
okay.
suggestion.
So,
No
no one that wants to make a motion in favor or opposed? Okay. It is, we are taking no action on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, that takes us to item 13, to authorize the chair to sign the 2020 Joint Security Protection Agreement between Minnehaha County and the State of South Dakota Department of Military. Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Keith Winningham, Air Guard Division Supervisor. I'm just requesting that you guys approve the 2020 Security Agreement with the South Dakota Air National Guard. Pretty standard agreement again this year. Initial funding is about $920,000, which will initially put us at a shortfall of roughly $213,000. But as soon as the agreement is signed, we can roll right into the unfunded funding request, so which will in turn get us paid in full by the end of the fiscal year in September. So,
Make a motion to authorize the chair to sign this agreement.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any comments, questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank
All right,
you.
thank you.
Thank you.
Takes us to item 14, which is to authorize the chair to sign the 2020 Minnehaha County 4-H Advisory Salary MOU with SDSU. Good morning.
Good morning. Chuck Martinell, SDSU Extension, Minnehaha County 4-H Program Advisor, Extension Department. I'm here to present the 2020 MOU between SDSU Extension and the county. There is one slight error in the MOU that was brought to my attention, that towards the bottom of the first page, second to last paragraph, instead of 2019, it should be 2020. So I do apologize for that error.
Any questions? Assuming we can authorize execution of the agreement with that change noted. Correction of that date.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any further comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to a brief presentation from Chuck on the Minnehaha County Extension and 4-H programs.
Yeah, I will do a very brief presentation here, mindful of your guys' time and my ability to speak in public. So, Minnehaha County Extension 4-H program here, August through December of 2019. We end our 4-H year in September every year, and this year we're pretty pleased with our number of youth. We ended the year with 702 youth in the program, taking part in club programs. These include programs such as shooting sports, horse, and junior leaders, and among other things such as our traditional 4-H clubs. We have 87 volunteers leading these clubs and these programs. We train these volunteers. We work with these volunteers on a monthly, if not weekly basis. And the extension staff themselves were able to provide programming for 12,604 youth through our different programs and partnerships. Each of these youth in these programs receive about 6 hours of training. A lot of them receive a lot more. For us, that 702 is definitely the largest number we've had since I've been here. So we've definitely doubled the enrollment in 7 years for those numbers. To give you guys some comparison, the Sioux Empire Fair, which is kind of the event that a lot of people associate with the fair, we had 483 youth take part in that fair, which is a very large number for us. A lot of projects. We had over 3,000 different projects and presentations and demonstrations that were given during the fair itself, so that is a very large part of our program. In comparison, when we go into an after-school program, or actually in school, this September I did Butterflies in Flight, in which we took in a butterfly net and had kids start with caterpillars, go to chrysalis, and then hatch butterflies, and then release them. That program was about 400 kids. And the amount of time for both of them is very similar, but the impact is very much different. The impact for the fair is more of a family youth event. It's more of a showcase event to show off those projects and skills and talents that the youth have learned. where Butterflies in Flight, we're able to do a pre and post test and show that the students have learned through our teaching. So in the Butterflies in Flight, we had about 94% of the youth increase their knowledge from pre to post. Teachers and youth have reported that our in-class and out-of-class after-school programs have had a huge impact on their programs and are very beneficial to them. A lot of times these school programs can't do these programs anymore because they don't have the funding or the time. So that's been a very beneficial thing for us because we were able to fill that niche and provide a lot more educational programming. One of the things we're changing here in the 4-H world, so I move to my next slide, is we are redoing our program again. It's been about 5 years, and our program used to be focusing on ag, STEM, leadership, and healthy relationships. We'll be changing more into a workforce prep type training. I'll be prepared to share more about that in March when we get all the information. But we have taken steps in the fall to try to start that process. We've started partnering with different FFA groups in high schools to try to help with that workforce prep of providing interview questions and take part in their interview process that they already do. And that way we can learn more and kind of adapt our program to help with that. We're also focusing on continuing our programs. We did a lot of programming in the fall here. Out-of-school programs focused on weather because that was a hot topic this last year. So a lot of programs want to learn more about wind and water, which was another big focus here, especially with what was affecting the county with flooding. We also continue to do some science. We did some fun science night camp, which I would go out and do. We did simple machines. So we learned about how simple machines such as a bridge, how you can build it very easily using just pulleys and levers, and it's very simple stuff. As we move forward here, we have moved. We have moved over to, I have the address up there. We're on 4101 West 38th Street, Suite 101, 103. I'd like to also thank Deb Knudsen, who served as our administrative assistant for many, many years. She is retired here on December 2nd. We have filled her, hopefully have filled her position. Until then, I am doing that job as well, which is very much a learning experience also, because you don't realize just how needed those positions are until you are the one doing them. Currently, we're serving on planning committees of the Egg Days, Waterfest, Women in Science, and Sioux Empire Fair. These are very vital for us to be a part of, because we provide a lot of the educational materials to some of these committees, and other committees allow us to showcase our program. In the spring, we'll be going back into classrooms and doing chickens again, which is a tremendous opportunity. We have about 30 classrooms already signed up, and I have to see if we can find enough time to squeeze a couple more in. We'll be doing the Incredible Journey, which is a weather program that Nathan will be doing. We'll continue doing our consumer decision making. Our consumer decision making team just came back from nationals, placing 5th in the nation, and that was just last week. And we'll continue doing our club project days, science nights, and robotics, among other programs that we traditionally do. So I know it's quick and brief, but just want to let you know what we've been up to.
Thank you. Any questions? Commissioner Barth.
What hours do you try to be open at the office?
Well, we are 8 to 5.
Okay.
There's always somebody around.
At some point, I need to stop by and say hi.
Yep, you're definitely all invited to come by. Eventually, when we get settled, we'll have more of a open house type
With
format.
food?
I will bake for you. Promise it's edible, though.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us to item 16. Consider a resolution to declare Highway Department scrap iron material as surplus and authorize disposal by recycling. DJ Boothia, good morning.
Morning, Commissioners. DJ Boothia, Highway Superintendent. We've got a stockpile at our main facility where when we remove old culverts or bridge parts or find debris or garbage in the ditches. We put a bunch of iron in a stockpile location, and then usually once a year, whenever the stockpile place fills up, we've got to bring that to a recycler. And the way that the statute reads in South Dakota, we are required to pass a resolution to bring this scrap iron to a recycler as long as it's valued over $500. It's difficult for us to estimate how much the worth of the iron is, but in this case we believe that it's worth probably about $1,000, and so we're requesting a declaration of surplus and execution of this resolution, allowing us to take the recyclable materials to TJN and drop them off and receive a check, at which time then we'll come back and ask you to put that into the highway department or the highway fund.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other comment? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, sorry, roll call vote.
Oh.
Barth.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye, motion passes unanimously. We get the next couple, DJ. So item 17 is to authorize the chair to sign a professional engineering services agreement with Short, Elliott, and Hendrickson. Highway project number MC 20-05.
Commissioners, as you're pretty aware, we've had a lot of flooding issues the last couple summers. In 2019, 2 different times, once in the spring and once closer into the fall, we had water overtopping the road west of Baltic on County Highway 114 for a stretch probably over a half of a mile long. And so as a result of that, we've had quite a few conversations with the city of Baltic and internally just with our engineering staff about what we can do for flooding prevention. Along the same time frame, we received a notice from the state of South Dakota saying that there's some potentially some grant funding available for projects to mitigate the risk of flooding in the area, in the Minnehaha County area. And so what we decided that we would like to do is hire SEH to do some preliminary engineering for us to determine kind of the scale or the order of magnitude of what a project might look like if we were to raise the highway west of Baltic to prevent overtopping of that roadway up to a certain flooding event. And so the first step of going through this process is working with an engineer to find out kind of the feasibility of a project like this, and then after that determine whether there's a benefit cost ratio high enough that would allow us to apply for this grant funding that is available. The timeline of this is, I think the grant application deadline is in March, and so we'll do this preliminary work under this agreement, and if we're comfortable that we would have a successful grant application or a competitive grant application, we would apply for that grant in March, and then if we were successful for that grant, we'd move into a design phase through the spring and probably the summer and look at, through our budget process, where we can fit a road raise project into our long-range plan. So with that, we're requesting the chairperson to authorize and sign this agreement for professional engineering services with SEH in the hopes that eventually it will lead to a project to protect the city of Baltic from being able to get in and out of their community during a flooding event.
Make a motion to approve, but I do have a question.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Commissioner
Madam Chair,
Barth.
DJ, if you raise the road, you're not just building a bigger dam, are you? I mean, the water has to, it'll back up unless it can get through.
That's a good question, Commissioner. We would essentially be building a dam, and so this would also include replacing a bridge structure that's on that section of roadway.
The one to the west of the Big Sioux River?
Correct, yes. It's about a mile west of the Big Sioux River.
How about culverts?
We would look at the entire hydraulics of this road section, and we may have to increase the culvert size of a couple different culvert crossings, and then also I think that bridge would be expanded by quite a bit.
Commissioner Heiberger?
Additional question is that you said the grant application is due March 13th,
Correct.
but the service completion by them is March 13th. Does that give you enough time if they don't complete it until the 13th to make a review of it and then make a decision? That's like there's not even 24 hours because it's the same day.
Right. We were, I guess, conservative in the completion of services in their proposal. The understanding working with this consultant is that we would need specific information prior to that March 13th date in order to make the application if it's looking like their benefit cost ratio is going to be high enough to apply for the grant.
Okay.
Good questions. Anything else? All right, I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Takes us to item 18, consider resolution to set weight load limits on certain Minnehaha County highway bridges. DJ.
Commissioners, we completed our annual bridge inspection in 2019, and we had a recommendation to post an additional bridge on our bridge network for reduced weight loads. This one is different than any other posting that we have on our system because it included a calculation that is specific to emergency vehicles. If there's a bridge that's within 3 miles of an interstate system, there's an additional calculation that has to be done to look at the weight restrictions that should be imposed on a bridge. And this one failed that calculation. And so we have to post a bridge specifically for emergency vehicles. And once this is posted, then we will notify all of the area emergency services. And so if they have to route to a specific house or anything in that area, they will know that they have got to take a different route so they're not going over this bridge. In addition to this, the single unit truck vehicle that calculation that we do for a bridge is a little bit less than the weight restriction or the legal load limit, and so there will also be a single unit restriction placed on this structure. It's not very low, and so we don't really think that the impact is going to be very high for the people in this area, but at the same time it will be required. We will probably be putting this into our 5-year plan during the next budget process, just to make sure that we don't have any reduced weight bridges on our county highway system.
Questions? If not, I'd entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Benega.
Aye.
Heiberger.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye.
Barth.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Takes you to your last item, DJ. Consider a motion to authorize the highway superintendent to execute 2 agreements to purchase wetland credits for project MC 17-01.
Commissioners, we've been working on the design for the County Highway 146 reconstruction project now for a couple years, and we recently received the Army Corps of Engineer permits to conduct this work starting hopefully this early spring. Our bid opening is actually tomorrow for this work, and so as part of the Army Corps permit or the Army Corps permit that we received, we are required to mitigate some wetland impacts that we're going to have. Because of the multiple different types of wetlands that they have identified, they are requiring a couple different types of mitigation. Because this is the first project that we have where we have 2 different agreements for purchasing wetland credits. The first one is 0.97 credits of slope type wetlands, and the second one is 2.02 credits of riverine linear type wetlands. And so that first one is going to be an agreement with Ducks Unlimited for $17,654, and the second one is with Tatanka LLP for $27,876. And the reason that we like to do these types of agreements is because the alternative is for us to develop our own wetland program where we build wetlands and we monitor them forever and provide monitored reports to the state of South Dakota and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. We're not set up to do that. Most government agencies aren't, and so what they do is they contract with these third parties that their line of business is buying property, building wetlands, and doing all the monitoring themselves, reporting that directly to the state and the federal government, and then we buy credits through them. And so with that, I'm requesting your approval of these 2 agreements and the signature of the chairperson, and so we can move forward with lighting the project tomorrow and moving forward with the construction this summer.
Make a motion to approve with a question.
Second.
Motion and a second. Commissioner Barth.
DJ, if it's a wet road ditch, since that soil's already been disturbed, that's not counted as a wetland, right?
It can be.
It can be.
It can be, yeah.
In this case, are we taking out some of our old road ditches and buying credits to compensate?
Yeah, some of the linear type wetlands that are listed in here are actually along a ditch side. If you imagine driving down some of our highways where you might see some cattails in the ditch, those would possibly be considered or delineated as wetlands.
I guess, Madam Chair, I thought that if it had previously been disturbed, it didn't count. That was.
It goes back to the soil types and what kind of things are growing in that area.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, so I lost track. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously with Commissioner Heiberger abstaining. All right, that takes us to item 20, liaison reports. Are there any liaison reports this morning? All right, not seeing any. Any new business? Any old business? Everyone's still awake, right? Oh, Commissioner Heiberger.
One real short old business. I think I reported on this earlier that the NACO and Justice and Safety MacArthur Grant had named me as the Justice and Safety Champion cohort with a group of 4 other people from nationally. We did our first phone call yesterday, and they will be sending us to St. Louis for a safety and justice networking, which we have several other people from Minnehaha County that will be attending that, but now NACO will be paying for my travel to also attend that workshop, and also the National Association of County Commissioners in Orlando this summer will also be paid for by NACO and Justice and Safety Challenge, and I will be sitting on a panel of the other 4 people to talk about some of the work that we've been doing in Minnehaha County regarding justice and safety changes.
It's exciting. Thank you. Anything else? If not, I'd entertain a motion to recess.
So moved.
Second.
Did I miss old business?
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
I just wanted to give you a quick update on the I'm working with City of Hartford on their joint jurisdiction request. I wanted to let the County Commission know, you have attended in the past, that they are having another public hearing. That'll be 2 weeks from tonight. That would be the 28th. And it'll be at the same location it was last time, which is the American Legion in Hartford, which is downtown across from City Hall. And that starts at 7 p.m. I'm working with the City of Hartford and Teresa Seidel, the city manager. We're sending out notices again, and we'll be putting on a short program on the joint jurisdiction request. So I have been getting calls and emails, so I am putting the word out and wanted to let you know and put it out into TV land that it's 2 weeks from tonight at 7 p.m. So if you have any questions, let me know.
That location is a block and a half north of the new brewery out there.
Thank you for clarifying that for us. All right, so motion to recess.
So move.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A motion passes unanimously. I would like to